Mics, please. Mute you.
Mute them.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this evening's meeting regarding the temporary closure of the Old Palace Lodge, which has been arranged by Andrew Selous MP in response to residents' questions following the recent announcement. For those that don't know me, I'm Councillor Liz Jones and I'm the Town Mayor, and I've been asked to chair this meeting in a neutral role, so to allow Andrew and to allow the Old Palace Lodge representative the opportunity to respond to some questions. Thank you to the Reverend Rachel Phillips for allowing the meeting to be held here, and I understand from Rachel that there are no planned emergency evacuations. Obviously, if the alarms do go, we will need to evacuate, and the evacuation is through the door at the back of the church, and the doors will be opened for us so we can exit as quickly as we can. Likewise, we do have a lot of you in the building that are having to stand. There may be some of you that are able to share your seats, share the love a little bit as it's Valentine's week, and maybe offer up a seat for those that can't stand for the whole duration of the meeting. Let's do a little bit of sharing. Sharing is caring throughout the meeting if we can, please, if we do find that somebody needs a seat. So tonight's panel members are Andrew Selous, our MP, and Vivian Vassiere, the Old Palace Lodge Head of PR and Marketing. I'm shortly going to ask both of them to make a statement before we start the meeting in full with your questions. At this time, I'm going to manage the flow of questions, and I'm going to ask you to be succinct with your questions. Raise your hand if you have a question. We have somebody going around with a roaming microphone, and you will need to speak into the microphone so that those that are watching on the live stream can hear the questions that are being asked. To start off with, as there are significantly a number of people here, I'm only going to allow one question per person. If we then have the opportunity to open up for further questions in the 2 hours that we have for this meeting, then we can come back to those that have got additional questions. If the questions have already been answered by Andrew in previous days and weeks through the series of questions that he was asked previously, we may refer you to those answers online, and we can talk to them about them briefly here. Okay, but we don't want to be duplicating the questions. We want to maximise this opportunity you have. So we are online, we are on YouTube, so being in the room, there is a possibility that your faces may be seen and your voices may be heard online. So we do need you to be aware of that, please. Let's be respectful to each other. There's lots of us that have got questions, and I'm sure lots of us have got views and opinions. But tonight is about being respectful to each other, allowing each other to speak when asked to speak, so that we can all have an opportunity. And I don't want to do this, but as chair of the meeting, if I find that we have to stop the meeting, I will stop the meeting. Okay, so please, let's all be respectful and give each other an opportunity. So I'm going to ask Vivian from the Old Palace Lodge to do her statement first as an opening statement, and then we'll move on to Andrew. Over to you, Viv.
Thank you, Liz. I think I'm unmuted. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am here. I'm not. No, I didn't think I was. I apologize. Can you hear me now? No? Can you hear me now? Is that better? No? It's on.
Just give her that anyway, yeah. Viv, try the microphone.
Right, sorry about the technical issue. Where is the thing? Is it on?
Yeah, hold it close to your mouth.
Can you hear me now? No.
Does your one work? Your one works.
You sounded very good. Oh, that's it. Now I can hear myself. So we must be okay. Thank you very much, Liz. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to represent the Old Palace Lodge, where I have worked in a consulting capacity, heading up PR and marketing campaigns and organizing major events since 2009. During that time, I saw a huge amount of refurbishment taking place with 3 new suites, full renovation of the lounge bar, a kitchen refit, the build of a fitness center, and 3 studio flats for staff. The addition in 2018 of a new wing with 18 luxury rooms, increasing the stock to 85 bedrooms, and a fabulous small garden just 12 months later. The hotel gained a Visit England 4-star rating, while this year the gardens won Anglia in Bloom Gold. It is evident that throughout the years, such extensive renovation program, with all the energy, vision, and finances it required, were part of a robust investment plan designed to future-proof the hotel and secure the long-term sustainability of the company. The hotel income was driven mainly from 2 sources: corporate visitors and private events, such as wakes, anniversary, weddings, and seasonal Christmas parties. Then in 2020, COVID struck. The hotel closed down. We were brokering a contract, by the way, with Central Bed Council to accommodate convalescing patients so that precious hospital beds could be released and made available for COVID casualties. During lockdown periods, the management top up salaries from their own pockets. Then at the tail end of 2021, things improved a little and we all learned to kick-start our lives again. Only a lot had changed in the business scene. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, to keep afloat, businesses had to revamp how they operate and employ new strategies to achieve their goals. Meetings, which are an integral part of the workday, are now done differently. Before the pandemic, business meetings were mostly done face-to-face, but now being done virtually. Tragically, with 2 nearest competitors closed, which opened up an extra 340 bed nights, the hotel still could not fill Tuesday to Wednesday, could only fill Tuesday to Wednesday. Since COVID, the bedroom demand isn't there anymore. The Woodside business managers did not return to Dunstable. The OPL had lost its main source of revenue. In the end, by the end of 2021, the tail end of 2021, the management was approached by a broker working on behalf of the Home Office. They sent him away. However, with energy bills rising from £4,600 to just under £27,000 per month in 2022, interest rate moving up, borrowing becoming more expensive, the cost of servicing loans increased massively. The company's expenses were greater than its revenue. It was operating at a loss. When a contract from the Home Office was offered again, it was with a heavy heart that the management had to accept it. They totally appreciate the devastating effect this has on the community. However, this temporary arrangement will provide much needed investment into the hotel, which they anticipate will stand the business in good stead for the future, as well as providing continued employment for some of the staff. The hotel has always been at the heart of Dunstable community. Would it be accommodating the launch of Dunstable Town Council development plans, supporting local businesses with attractive corporate offers and networking opportunities, hosting Anglia in Bloom and recently Britain in Blooms, presentations, offering a year-on-year free accommodation for the judges, while yearly sponsoring a Bedfordshire-based charity with vital fundraising opportunities. Whenever possible, they have sourced local suppliers, and during lockdown, bedrooms were offered to the L&D doctors and nurses at no cost. The management has worked diligently over the past decades to develop a hub of hospitality excellence and promote the area as a potential visitor destination. Closing the hotel was not a decision they took lightly. Thank you.
Thank you, Viv. Andrew, would you like to take stand?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. I apologise that many of you aren't able to sit. It was the biggest venue, I'm afraid, I was able to find for this particular evening. I really get the extent of the upset about what has happened. Like you, I love the Old Palace Lodge very much. I try and use it as often as I can. I try and have meetings in it. I've put my own family up in it. When my daughter got married last summer, it was the top hotel we recommended family and friends to stay in. And I've had many dinners there, business breakfasts and so on. And I really, really miss it. And I know what a special place it is for our town. And I know it is the venue of choice for so many people for weddings, wedding receptions, special birthday parties, wakes after funerals, and so on. And I think that is the reason that so many of us, including me, are so upset about what has happened. Now, I just want to explain a little bit about why we're in this situation and how it happened. There is a global refugee crisis, if you like. The numbers rise and rise. If you just look at the television news, you will see things happening in different countries around the world, and the UK is not immune from that. In fact, we are less affected than many other nations in Europe. So there were 40,000 people that crossed the Channel in boats last year. France had 100,000 asylum applications. So this is happening right across Europe. The UK is not unique at all. Now, I want us to get to a properly planned and prepared asylum system. I think the government owes that to the people of this country. I think we owe it to the refugees themselves so we can look after them properly. And I think we need to know the capacity of each area, what we are able to offer as a country, and we need to work on a proper planned basis, not what is happening at the moment, which I don't think is good public administration. I also don't like the way that the Home Office just sort of go directly to hotels. I think a better way, given what we are facing as a country, would be if the Home Office went to different local authorities and say, "We're very sorry, we need you to take 200 refugees. We'll give you 10 days or so, you decide and you tell us." And if that had happened in central Bedfordshire, I know we would have tried to protect the Old Palace Lodge because of its special place in this community. So that's something, hands up, I personally think the government could do better. We don't have a returns agreement with other European countries. It's the government's position is that refugees, asylum seekers should claim asylum in the first safe country that they get to, and France, I have to say, is a safe and wealthy country. But once asylum seekers come onto our shores, we are bound by conventions and we have no returns agreement with France. And that means that we cannot return non-French nationals to that country. The government wants to move to a position where people apply for asylum through safe and legal routes, not least because many asylum seekers have lost their lives in the Channel trying to get to this country. So the government has taken some action. We have a new agreement with Albania. Up to a third of people coming here were from Albania. Albania is a safe European country. Other European countries were not accepting asylum applications from Albania. We now have a proper agreement with Albania, and the numbers of Albanians coming has gone right down, and there are not Albanians in the Old Palace Hotel, as far as I am aware. Some people say that, that France hasn't been as helpful as they could have been. In fact, they helped us stop 31,000 boats last year, so they do work with the UK, but these issues are not easy. As Viv said, hotels generally are having a very hard time. There are 2 4-star hotels which have closed in Harpenden recently because they couldn't make a go of it. And I really want the Old Palace Lodge to open. I don't run the hotel, I have no financial connection with it. And I get the anger, but I am upset by some of what I've seen on social media because no town has a right to a lovely hotel. We only have that hotel if hoteliers want to offer the service, and then the people of the town agree to use it. And I do really get the upset of people who've had their weddings, wedding receptions, and parties cancelled. We had to do that twice for my own daughter's wedding reception during COVID, so I really understand it. If the hotel had gone into liquidation, even the deposits would not have gone back. But I have been upset by what has happened in the last few days with the leafleting around the town, which I think was inflammatory and unwelcome. And I'm upset by an incident outside the hotel last night, which caused a lot of fear and upset to the asylum seekers and some of the activities outside the hotel today. Dunstable is a kind town. I want it to be known for its kindness. We are better than that. We are a decent town. We look out for each other. We are a town of many cultures. We have had waves of Irish, Italian, Polish, Romanian, Bulgarian, and most recently Turkish immigration to this town. And they've all, in general, made a tremendous contribution. Look at the businesses up and down the high street. And actually, do you know, most of the time, we get on pretty well. So I'm upset about some of the incidents that have happened. I know the good people of this town. I know you have concerns. You have legitimate concerns. By all means, give me a hard time. I know many of you will tonight. But please, can we be a town that shows kindness to people who have had difficult journeys, irrespective of how they came here? That is what we're known for. That is what I want us to be known for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. So we're now going to move to questions. And obviously with a number of people in the room, it is going to be difficult for us to do this in any kind of order. There's a gentleman there with his hand up already, so he will be our number 1. And there's a lady, 3rd row here as our number 2. So let's go with 1, 2, 3. I've seen 3 hands. We'll go 3 at a time, and then we'll remember where we're at. Okay? If when you ask your question, if I can ask you please to give your name and your postcode.
They've got the microphone. They'll need the microphone. Yeah.
That's better. Yeah, good evening. My name's Mr. Kevin Meehan. I live in LU6 1XG. Mr. Selous, you know me because I've emailed you many times. I'd just like to say, first of all, you talked about this town has had many different immigrants from they weren't put in 4-star hotels when they came here. So the other thing I was going to say is that the people you've actually put here, we actually know nothing about them. And I know that because my son-in-law is actually a manager in one of the detention centres they actually originally come from. They don't have enough time to assess them. They don't know their background. The other thing is, I mean, the wording, asylum seekers. When you enter a country illegal, you are an illegal immigrant. You are not an asylum seeker, and that states it. An asylum seeker will apply in the first country. So I think the wording needs to be changed. Say it how it is, and people have a lot more respect for you. We do respect you as an MP, as we do our councillors, but we are truthful people. Most people here just want the truth, and that's all we're looking for. The Palace Lodge is not a HMO, or has it been licensed as one? And if so, when did it get the licence? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your question, sir. So the government agrees with you that hotels are not the accommodation that we should be using for asylum seekers. There's common ground between you and what the government wants to do. But we do not have tens of thousands of spare and available accommodation rooms for asylum seekers. What the government is trying to do, and they've already found 10,000 places to do this, so we are already on the way, is in preference we want to use a spare holiday camp accommodation or disused student accommodation, and we are looking at surplus military land around the country, because hotels are needed in their communities. They're needed for personal family events, for the local business community, although we do, as Viv was saying, need the business community to use it more often. And the government does want people to come through safe and legal routes. Again, that is government policy, that is the government objection, but we are bound by international conventions. And as I said, it is not just a case of taking a Nigerian national, just to pick a nationality at random, and then running them back to Calais, because we have no legal agreement to do that. If this was easy, I promise you we would have solved it a long time ago. Now that doesn't absolve the government of getting a solution, and you're right to challenge me, and the government shares your concerns, and we will try and find more appropriate accommodation. I think Viv wanted to add to that.
Yes, can I just say that the people who are at the Old Palace Lodge today actually have working permits, they have been processed, they actually go to work, and some are actually taking some courses. So they are not illegal in the sense of the way you intend.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just add a second part to your question? So you asked about security. So when all asylum seekers come, there are biometrics taken, which is fingerprints, facial recognition. There are also checks by Home Office staff against national and international criminal databases, and there are health checks. So that there is quite significant initial screening by the Home Office, and the Home Office also, their contractors, do have security and support staff 24/7 at the hotel as well.
Thank you, Andrew.
It works. Hello, my name's Claire Ashenden and I live in LU6 3AL. So it's quite a different question, Andrew, and I have written to you many times about the doctor's surgery in the past.
Yeah.
But I work for Children's Services, and we were based in Wantley House, and we've been given hybrid contracts, and in my humble opinion, there's a perfectly good building vacant, which, for me, the Old Palace Lodge we've used, as you've said quite rightly, on a number of occasions for family venue events. Myself, I was getting married in July.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So I heard about it on Facebook. I get quite emotional about it because I've got family coming from all over the world, elderly parents, going to put everybody up in the Old Palace Lodge. It was wonderful. The people that work there are wonderful. Absolutely gutted. So I wouldn't have wanted the job to ring me, and she did ring me, the lady there, to tell me that my wedding was cancelled. And obviously I entered into a contract, and my contract read that should I break that contract, I would be liable for 20% of the whole cost. But I didn't break the contract, they did. Okay, I've got my deposit back, that's fine, but I've given notice to get married. So because I'd given notice with the local authority to get married, I had to pay £35 and my partner had to pay £35 to give notice to say we want to be married at the Old Palace Lodge. Well, now we can't get married there through no fault of our own, and we've had to find another venue, which fortunately we have. So the wedding still goes ahead. But we have lost £70, drop in the ocean for many people, but we pay our tax, we, law-abiding citizens, and I have emailed the Old Palace Lodge on so countless occasions to ask about £70, and I'm sure that I'm not the only person that will have lost that money. So I appreciate getting my deposit back, albeit that I could argue, and I'm not going to, because I understand we need to look after these people, etc. But from a personal point of view, why should I have to have a battle about £70 that wasn't anything that I didn't bought on myself? And all the stress and everything that it caused me to have to try and find another venue and house family that are already booked flights, etc., etc., etc. So it's been quite a stressful time. But yeah, so thank you.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's more money than
Well, first of all, can I say how incredibly sorry I am about your wedding plans? I say personally, with COVID, it was COVID, not what's happened at the Old Palace Lodge, but my daughter had to change her wedding reception 2 years running, so I've been through that family drama, and I think all our hearts go out to you. Delighted you found another venue there, and I think we all hope you have a really happy day. Watling House, I make a note of that. I mean, I don't think it would be suitable for accommodation. I guess it could be converted potentially, and I would agree with you. I think it would be a preferable location to the Old Palace Lodge. And I guess that goes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier. I think there should be more local discretion because local authorities know their areas much better than the Home Office does. I don't think the Home Office knows anything about Dunstable, to be honest. They're just tasked with just finding what they can. So I think there should be that local knowledge used. But I want this to be a short-term situation anyway and use those more preferable types of accommodation. I'm going to let Viv address the £70 issue, and because that's for the hotel.
Thank you very much. I didn't quite understand, or hear rather, why you had to repay that money. If you could tell me, and please again, I follow Andrew in the apologies. Ah.
So it was like having your bands ready if you were to get married.
Got you.
So you have to pay for that.
Yes.
And because we've had to change venue, we have to pay for that again. Central Bedfordshire won't refund me. Even though I work for them, they won't refund me. So I've had to pay it again.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have emailed numerous times to the generic email address, and I've been ignored, which is quite upsetting.
Okay. I will look into that for you.
Okay.
Andrew, you know the lady's name? Yes. Or can you come and see me afterwards, would you?
If you see
Thank you
Viv
very
afterwards.
much. I'll try to do something for
Okay,
you.
so we're going to move on to the gentleman there.
Thank you. My name is Chris Bourne, and my postcode is LU63JG. And Andrew, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the service that you've given to this constituency over the number of years, and you personally have helped me and my family with a totally unrelated matter in recent years, you may recall. However, I am shocked but not surprised that actually the South Bedfordshire Council is not represented here tonight, and no disrespect to you, Mayor, but the point I would like to make is that I understand, and it's common knowledge, that your right honourable friend Chris Heaton-Harris, who is the MP for Daventry, basically worked with Jonathan Nunn, who's the leader of Northamptonshire Council, when they learnt that Highgate House in Cretan in Northamptonshire, which is a 17th century hotel, was going to be used for asylum seekers, immigrants, whatever term you wish to use. He was notified around the same date as you've acknowledged, Andrew, which was the 15th of December. He worked very quickly and arranged a meeting in the first week of January. And basically there was a meeting, and by the 25th of January, the Home Office had miraculously said, we are no longer we consider that to be an inappropriate location, and therefore it will not go ahead. There was a further place called Westgate House in his constituency also that basically they campaigned, and effectively that one suddenly went away. Now, I'm absolutely staggered that we're now here 2 months down the line having this meeting. I know there was another meeting which wasn't purely to discuss this issue on the 25th of January, I believe, and there were other topics in that meeting. But if we had have acted promptly and had this meeting in early January, having known what was about to happen, we wouldn't have the situation we have now. And actually, I feel some sympathy for the Old Palace Lodge, believe it or not. They are a business that's suffering, I get that. They've been made, you know, an offer from taxpayers at huge expense. And if you've got a struggling business and it helps them to survive, I hope they do. You know, I understand it's a 2-year contract. I don't know the details of it. Perhaps you can confirm whether that, but it's a rolling contract, I believe, so it may go on beyond a year. But my point is that effectively Bedfordshire, you know, which I believe has 25% of immigrants in East Anglia, and Andrew, you probably know the figures better than I do, so we are a tolerant, we're a tolerant constituency from your point of view, and Dunstable in itself that I know we're talking about tonight. But the fact is, we are full and we have had more than our capacity, and it's other areas of the country that should actually be housing these people. Thank you.
So I'll take all those points head on. So I was alerted to that one hotel in Northamptonshire, which Chris Heaton-Harris did challenge and managed to get changed. So I spoke to him, I said, Chris, what did you do? And he does have 2 other hotels which are in his constituency and another 3 that the Home Office is about to move into. The particular hotel which the Home Office backed off from was a hotel with 400 residents in a small village of only 570 residents. So it will be the equivalent of about 20,000, 25,000 asylum seekers coming to Dunstable proportionately. So it was a pretty different state of affairs. And I can tell you, as I've spoken to Chris Heaton-Harris about this, he is as upset with the Home Office as I am, because he has 2 other hotels which have been taken over, and he's got a couple more in the pipeline, which is happening. So he was successful on one, but on several others he wasn't, and it's not actually directly comparable. On your point about Bedfordshire taking more than its fair share, you're completely right. 100% agree with you. I think we either seem to get the short straw, or we seem to shoulder more than we should have to quite often in Bedfordshire. As your MP, that does make me very angry on a lot of fronts. I think the figure is 1,260. It's 25% of all the asylum seekers in the whole of the east of England, and we are a much smaller county than other counties. So we have taken more than we should, which comes back to my initial point, a challenge to my own government. I don't think they're doing it properly or right. Stop this Home Office diktat from the centre. Tell local authorities what your quota is. Give local authorities a short period of time to find, the most suitable accommodation, and I think that would even it out more. But ultimately, I have to say, I do think we need a solution to what is happening across the Channel, and that is what the government is working on and does intend to bring forward legislation shortly. It's taken much longer than I would like. For that, again, I apologise. But that is the absolute objective of the government, to try and actually stop the numbers coming over the Channel in the way they are, which is dangerous, and asylum seekers have died on that journey.
Thank you, Andrew.
Andrew, can I ask you to cover the other 2 points? Why is Central Bedfordshire, the leader of Central Bedfordshire, not here tonight? And why wasn't this meeting organised?
Right. I think you could say perhaps being up here tonight is not the hottest gig in town, shall we say, for some of us. I was a soldier when I was younger. I was proud to wear the Queen's uniform. I'm quite used to running towards gunfire, as it were, metaphorically or otherwise. It's part of the job. I faced an angry public meeting in Leighton Buzzard about general practice capacity this time last week. It goes with the territory. I won't always have the answers you want, but I'll always try to get them for you. I'm afraid I can't speak for others. I'm delighted to be supported by the Mayor and the Town Council and by Viv from the hotel.
Thank you. So we've got a hand up halfway down.
Hi, my name's Louise Wright and I'm Lima Uniform 5 for Uniform Whiskey. I spoke to you in the town centre a couple of weeks ago and I asked you a question as to if genuine asylum seekers from Russia that are fleeing a war would arrive on the Kent shores, what would our government do?
Yeah. That's a question?
Yes. Yeah, can you?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
answered,
Well, no,
you
I
answered the
mean,
question on Saturday.
I think if they were asylum seekers who were fleeing President Putin's evil regime, they would have a legitimate right to claim asylum.
But hold on one moment. That's not. Sorry, that was not the response you gave me on the Saturday morning. Your words were that would be a national security risk. And my response back to you at that time was, why is one demographic a national security risk of undocumented men arriving on the shores compared to undocumented men coming from countries that are not at war? Most are safe and prosperous countries. There may be civil war going on, but hang on, you know, we've probably got civil war going on in this country. We don't agree with how our government are running this country. We don't agree that we're paying taxes and national insurance. We don't agree that we can't see a GP. We can't get a hospital appointment. We are struggling to feed ourselves. You told me in the Palace Lodge they get 3 basic meals a day. Do you know what the child poverty is in this country? Some children don't get 1 basic meal a day, let alone 3. So, you know, you need to go back into Parliament and you need to shout from the rooftops that, you know, we can't accept people. We're taking their word for it that they are seeking asylum. You're taking their word for it. Like I said, you know, I could be the legitimate daughter of Prince Charles and I'm going to be the Queen. I said this to you. You know, put me in the palace. No one believes that, do they? Because it's not true. But we are believing everything that you say, and then you're telling us that the biometrics are being done. Those biometrics are only as good as the country they're coming from if they've committed a crime and that country actually submits those biometrics into a national database. If not, we don't know if they've committed any crimes.
Yep, fair enough.
If they have working permits, then it'll be okay.
Look, I absolutely get your concerns. I mean, the Home Office takes the information it can in terms of biometrics, and it does run the checks, as I said to you, on both national and international databases. But you're right, it won't pick up everything. The difficulty is legally, once people are here and we don't have returns agreements, you know, there are not many practical options. The government agrees with you that, you know, that we want to regularise the situation. We want asylum applications to be through safe and legal routes, not through people getting on a dinghy from the French coast over to Dover or thereabouts. And the government, you know, is with you. It's one of its headline objectives for this year to deal with that situation. So I take no pleasure in what is going on, and you know, there are plans to reform the asylum system and how we accept people here. I think once they are here, you know, it is important that we have good community cohesion and that, you know, that we are civilised to people who are here. And as I say, that the Home Office do provide security staff within the Old Palace Lodge.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, gentleman there, fourth in. He's had his hand up a while. I'll come to you next.
Hello there, my name's Richard Atwell, LU6. First of all, I'd like to address Andrew Selous' comment that he made. I think we're all here tonight for the reason that you've actually failed all the people here in this room, because the Conservative government have continued to bang on about how they're going to stop the boats. In fact, it's your mantra to try and get re-elected again this year round. Now, I'm sorry, but is this really the right way to go about that? People of Dunstable are not stupid. They will listen and they will vote accordingly. For all the opinions that have been said tonight, however you see it, or whether you're for it or against it, the Old Palace Lodge, being a Grade 2 listed building with such historic and profound history in our town, is not the place to house any asylum seekers. In fact, it's an absolute disgrace. Whilst I take on board everything that's been said about a private business, it's not about the right of a private business to overrule the history of a town, and neither should it lose its identity for it. There must be something written here within Heritage England, etc., to look after that Old Palace Lodge. It's part of our history and integral to Dunstable. It's got historic panellings. It's got massive things that cannot be replaced and are absolutely priceless, not only to the Old Palace Lodge, but all our surrounding area. What is being done to protect those? As I say, I know this is a business, but there's more beyond that. And I'd like to know how that is being protected and what is being done from that, because it's not just about a private business making money out of a bad situation.
Yeah. Shall I start? Oh, there you go. So just on the condition of the hotel, I did write to Historic England, and there is no planning issue in terms of change of use. I do know, though, that every single room has been photographed, and there is an obligation on the Home Office to return that hotel in exactly the state which it was received in. And you know, so that is absolutely part of the contract. And I also know that some of the more historic rooms are being kept locked, and you know will be protected from that point of view. On the boats, it is a question of seeing what happens. I hear what you say. I agree with you that it's not a satisfactory situation. The government agrees with you. We will bring forward legislation to try to deal with that. But I do point out that it is not an easy situation. If it was easy, it would have been solved before now.
Thank you, Andrew. Viv?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure why it should be assumed that these people are going to damage the Old Palace Lodge. You might have picked up.
Please, everybody.
You might have picked up that when I speak with an accent. I'm not British born, I'm French. And being here tonight has a special meaning for me because I came here when I was 19, not as an asylum seeker, I grant you, but somebody who came because I wanted to improve my English. Well, I'm still doing it. But I think there is an assumption which is wrong. Those people, by the way, have been processed. They have permits. They are allowed to work. Some of them are helping charities. Others are taking courses. And others are actually working.
I don't have people shouting this.
Please, no shouting. Please.
No.
Please, let us carry on. Please, let us carry on. Sorry, I'll ask you to leave the meeting in a minute, sir, if you don't be quiet.
I think we just asked him to go.
Okay, can I ask you to leave the meeting, please, sir? Please let everybody have the opportunity. You're going to spoil it for everybody else. Please leave the meeting.
This is a stunt.
Right, please leave the meeting.
Hello, yes. Is that working? Hello. Oh, hello, yes. I was born and brought up in Dunstable. And we used to enter Dunstable with the entrance into Dunstable being a beautiful, historic.
Can you put the microphone to your mouth,
town?
please? Thank you.
And I'm not sure that the Old Palace Lodge owner has respect for the town and the architecture. Something happened with the pub next door, and there was suspicion about how.
Please
how
put the
and
microphone
what.
to your mouth, otherwise we won't be able to hear you.
And I think that this. I've also a friend who lives very close to the building, who has seen recently, since these men have been here, young girls and women harassed in the town. Now, I'm concerned for my children, my grandchildren. I'm concerned for Dunstable, the history of it. And of course, I understand people that need asylum, but if we have to respect those people, we're not sure who they are, or if they are genuine, as we've said, then our town and our people should also have respect from the people there.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you. I really, really wish the Old Palace Lodge had not been used because it is such a special building for all of us. I can't help that it has been, I'm afraid. So my objective is to get it back as quickly as possible and then to help it survive and thrive when it reopens, because if it is a successful business, it'll never ever need to take a government contract again, and that would make us all very happy. And as I say, the Home Office contract absolutely requires the hotel to be handed back in exactly the condition which it was handed over in. On the harassment point of view, before a single asylum seeker had arrived in that hotel, people contacted me to say there's a group of asylum seekers outside the Priory School. Not true, because they hadn't come. I was then told, also before they came, there's another group of asylum seekers harassing children outside Asda. Again, not true. They were students from Central Bedfordshire College, which has a diverse
Please let
makeup.
Andrew respond.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that there are people imagining that groups of asylum seekers are around in groups doing bad things, when it is simply not the case. They're existing Dunstable residents, because I was alerted to groups of asylum seekers doing things they shouldn't be when they weren't even here. So I think, we want the police to enforce law and order, whoever is doing anything wrong, as they should do, without fear or favour. And I have confidence that Bedfordshire Police will do that.
Thank you, Andrew. Gentleman there. Yes, thank you.
Noel Mooney, good evening to you all. First of all, I want to reach out and say a big, big thank you to all those who's gone out of the way to make the refugees around the world, wherever you are, whether it's Bedfordshire or all over the UK, wherever you are, as welcome as possible under difficult circumstances. So thank you so much for doing that. And Andrew, you are right. We are a kind, caring community here in Dunstable, and let that continue for as long as we possibly can. No, sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Andrew, we have to find a solution. There is a lot of anger and disappointment. We know that, and certainly disappointment at losing the Old Palace Lodge. But there are reasons, economic reasons, we know that as well. But Andrew, we've got to look for solutions. And one solution is your government has cut international aid to the poorest countries in the world by 40%. By 40%. Do you know how much you've cut international aid to the richest countries in the world? By 30%. So we've taken money out of the hands of the poor. And to all those who say, you know, we got people here who needs help, of course we do. We've got people all over the UK, all over the world that needs help. And those poor, desperate people that needs our help as well. And listen to this, you can't help the poor by taking a pound from another set of poor. No way. So Andrew, my question really is, why have you cut the international aid by 40%? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. So I actually agree with your general point that international development aid actually is important to provide prosperity around the world, and that actually stops flows of migration. So your general point, sir, I completely agree with you. When we brought in the International Development Act, there was a provision in the Act that it would be 0.7% all the time, only other than at times of extreme financial turbulence. And when the government had to spend £400 billion of taxpayers' money, which we had to borrow, that was an extreme financial event. So that is the reason, which I think most people will understand. Once we get back on an even keel, it will go back to 0.7 as it was before. That is the commitment. We still are an aid superpower. You know, we're spending about 10 billion a year. And actually, it's quite an important point, this as well. So the cost of that hotel and running it is coming from our international aid budget. So actually, it also sort of makes your point, sir, that part of the reason we need to fix and have a regularised, proper plan, prepared asylum process is so we can get the international development money being back spent in the poorest countries of the world rather than paying for hotels in Dunstable, which is not a proper use of it.
Thank you, Andrew. So we have the gentleman there, and then Christina, if we can go to the gentleman over the other side near the glass cabinet. He's had his hand up an awful long time. And then we'll come to the gentleman in the reddish jacket, please.
Mr. Selous, I spoke to you a fortnight ago about the hotel and the migrants, and in your reply you say to me that we have a duty to asylum seekers, but surely you should have a duty to Dunstable and to the British people, not to the asylum seekers.
So, sir, I am under no question. Collectively, you are my employer. I've always had that view. Well, you know, I've had the privilege of representing you. That's why I've hosted this meeting tonight. Brickbats or bouquets, I'm here to take them and I will listen. And, you know, I'm in broad agreement with a lot of what has been said. And actually the government agrees with, you know, probably most of what has been said this evening. The difficulty is translating that into action, and it's taken longer than I would like. As I say, you know, I wasn't able to stop it. I asked the Home Office not to use that hotel because I know how special it is to the hearts of people in Dunstable, and I want it back as quickly as possible. I hope it will reopen in the spring of next year, back for the people of the town again, you know, just in the same condition.
Please, thank you. Right, the gentleman over there near the glass cabinet, please.
Thank you. My name's Steve Burton, LU54HZ. I'm also a local church pastor, and I've heard a lot of voices here this evening which have been quite, I mean, I'm not sure if it is about the Old Palace Lodge, the anger, if I'm honest. I met with one of the refugees the other day in secret because he was so scared to come out into the town. He is... I'm curious because...
Please, let the gentleman...
It's good.
Let the gentleman ask his question and make his statement, please.
Good. And since last night's incident, he will not meet with me at all. There is fear from them. There's also anger from them towards the way the government are constantly moving them around without much notice. And they would love the paperwork they've done to be processed quicker, and just as much as a lot of people in this room would be. I'm curious to know actually what protection from those who are being stirred up to anger will the Old Palace Lodge and the residents of it, what is being planned for that? Because my fears are that there are some people who are becoming increasingly angry, and it's not going to be people in this room who are the target of that. It's going to be the Old Palace Lodge itself, which will hurt the historical character of the building, and the residents who are currently there, not by their own choice.
So thank you for making those points. In terms of asylum seekers being moved around, my understanding is that there was a hotel in London which came to the end of its contract, and that's why those asylum seekers had to be moved from that location here. I'm also conscious that the asylum seekers we've had in the Holiday Inn Express to the south of the town, that has caused much less concern because the Holiday Inn Express, great place as it is, does not have such a special place and such a special role in the life of our town, and that is why I think there is some of the tension which has been expressed here this evening. I'd like to thank all the churches represented here for their humanitarian outreach, and I really do mean this. It may not be popular with everyone, but actually while they are here, I want this town to treat them kindly. You know, we can have the political debate, and I agree that our asylum system needs to be reformed, but while they are in our town, you know, we should treat them with humanity and decency as we would want to be treated ourselves. And actually the record, if you talk to Bedfordshire Police, and I've questioned them very intently on this, there have been no serious incidents at all from the asylum seekers at the Holiday Inn Express. I don't see why it should be different here. If it is, Bedfordshire Police, who are here tonight and on top of the situation, will react appropriately. So I think you've made some good points. Thank you for making them.
Okay, thank you. That gentleman there, and then the gentleman standing up at the pillar. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Councillor John Gurney, Independent, LU5 4JP. I have a question for Viv, the PR for the Old Palace Lodge. I'm quite surprised that in your opening statement you didn't mention anything about compensation for all the people who had bookings. You seemed quite surprised that somebody should be asking for £70 compensation. Now, I've been contacted by quite a few people who had weddings there and other bookings and have been trying to contact the Old Palace Lodge for weeks and getting nowhere because they are owed thousands of pounds in compensation for lots of things that they had to book, which they've since had to repay. They just don't get the money back. They don't get refunds from other things. So they've lost all that money because of the cancelled weddings. Now, I contacted Andrew Selous 2 weeks ago, and I suggested to him that he contact the owner of the Old Palace Lodge and get this sorted out, so it would be quite good for PR. And you're a PR person, and you can't even be bothered to try and compensate all the people who've lost money over this. What are you going to do?
You finished? Well, as you said, I'm the PR person, not the owner. I'm here to represent them, and they're certainly aware of what Andrew has put to them through the last conversation that you had with him. It would be very difficult there was a sum of money which was put forward as well, and it would be very difficult to reimburse all of the people. I was interested in the lady who spoke to me, and if I look surprised, it's because I didn't realize that she'd had to pay because she's moved her venue. So that's something I can take up. But it would be very difficult for the Old Palace Lodge. When I told you a few minutes ago that actually they were running at a loss to be able to cover all of the compensation that you felt or you feel that people are entitled to. It's a tragedy, it's terrible, and I grant you that we are very, very sad, very upset, very disappointed. I personally have tried to rehouse some of the events, so I have done that. I've helped people with jobs and opportunities, so I've done that. And I know that the Old Palace Lodge themselves are also looking into other ways to help people. So that's what I can say to you tonight.
Okay, thank you, Viv. We've got the gentleman standing there, and then there's a gentleman over the back there waving his black cap. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Wesley Russell. It's very telling that a lot of the conversation tonight seems to be around the hotel. But let's not beat around the bush, okay? Everybody, I think, can agree with me that the biggest concern is everybody's welfare and safety. Now, don't take us for fools when you say that these people are refugees. We know they are illegal migrants. If these people were refugees, what are they fleeing from? It's very telling that we're never told what they are fleeing from. What wars are they fleeing from? What countries are they coming from? What are they fleeing? What persecution? We don't know. So we know that they're by definition illegal immigrants, which technically makes them criminals, and they should be treated as such. They shouldn't be put up in five-star hotels. They should be in cells, and they should be told they are not leaving until they pay for their ticket back. So my question to you is not where are you going to shift them to in a year's time, how are you going to remove them from the country? And don't give me an excuse that, oh, there's the UN refugee document that we signed, or it's the European Court of Human Rights. We voted for Brexit. This is supposed to be a sovereign country. You could easily withdraw from any of those agreements, but you don't. Your party has failed time and time again. In 2010, David Cameron said he was going to get immigration down. How did that work out? We've got higher levels than Tony Blair, and it was his intention to flood this country with migrants on purpose. These people, not all of them, but some of them are going to go on to commit egregious crimes, rape, theft, murder, and there was a reason why the other day there was that ruckus in Kirkby, and we all know why it was, because a migrant was harassing a young girl. That is going to happen in Dunstable. It's going to happen in every single part of the country. You need to stop this now, or you're going to have a serious problem on your hands. Thank you.
Ask your question.
Okay. We'll move straight to the next question, please, sir.
So,
okay, please, sir, can you please sit down? Can you please sit down so we can move to the next question? Please sit down so we can move to the next question. Thank you.
So we're in a church this evening, and 1 in 7 Christians around the world are not safe to practice their faith. Some of the residents in the Old Palace Lodge are from Nigeria. Do you know how many Nigerians lost their lives for being Christians last year? 3,000. 3,000 people killed just for coming to a church. Quite recently, earlier this year, 50 Catholics were blown up in a church just for coming to a service. I'm glad you weren't in charge of this country's asylum policy when the Jews were trying to get here from Nazi Germany.
Okay.
I think what you have said is offensive, sir. I'm very sorry.
Okay, let's move to the next question, please. We're going to move to the next question. We're going to go to the gentleman that's standing up there. Sir, you've had your say. You've had your say, sir, please. Okay, sir, we're going to move to the next question. Can we... Right, enough, or I will ask you to leave as well. Goodbye then, good night, thank you for coming.
Was that a Nazi salute?
Okay, if you'd like to ask your question.
Good evening, my name is Ken Swinburne, LU54HD. I have just a simple question, Mr. Selous. You've been on and on and on tonight about the Home Office doing this, doing that, doing the other. tell me, and the rest of the group here, who is running the country? Is it the Conservative Party, or is it the Home Office and the other mandarins? Thank you.
It's a fair challenge. I agree the Home Office should be subject to ministers, and I will go back to Robert Jenrick, the Immigration Minister. I will tell him of the dissatisfaction I already have. I've had several conversations with him. The legal position, and we are a country under the rule of law, and actually none of us would want to live in a country that wasn't under the rule of law. The legal position is that the Home Office can only keep asylum seekers once they get to Manston for 96 hours in that centre. Otherwise, they themselves are open to legal challenge, and they have to then find other accommodation. That is not a satisfactory situation. I am not happy with it. I am not happy with what is happening across the Channel. It is not a proper planned process, and I want to see it ended as quickly as possible. So I'm with you on wanting to sort out what is happening in the Channel, but we have the current legal situation. We have to get new law in place. We tried with the Nationality and Borders Act 2022. It wasn't quite tight enough, so we are going to have to try again to regularise the situation. But I hear what you say, and I will take that back directly to the Immigration Minister.
Thank you, Andrew. I've got a gentleman who is the fourth in from... Yeah.
Good evening, my name is Nicholas Katarski, LU54AJ. Simple question, where will dental and doctor resources be sourced from, as my daughter cannot get an NHS dentist since moving back to Dunstable 9 months ago?
Yeah. So I think we have about 130 asylum seekers in the Old Palace Lodge. That's the capacity of the hotel. It certainly won't be more than that in a town of 35,000. So I'm spending more of my time than anything else on general practice capacity. You're absolutely right. This time last week, I was in Leighton Buzzard hosting another public meeting of about 300 fairly passionate, angry people on general practice capacity. So I absolutely recognise the issue. There is a failure to properly plan and expand general practice capacity, particularly when they're large-scale new housing estates. It's the issue I've raised in Parliament more than anything else. We are training more doctors. There are 4,000 newly qualified doctors from last year's intake training to be GPs at the moment. That is the highest number ever. It used to be only 2,600 back in 2014. So we are getting more through, but it will take time. And I'm registered at Kirby Road, like many of you here. That's where my family are registered as well, so I absolutely get the pressures. There is some additional payment from the Home Office to local GPs for providing a medical service to the asylum seekers. So there is a transfer of some money to our local GPs, to answer your question.
Thank you. We've got the gentleman on the front and then the lady on the end on the second row. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nigel Taylor, LU6 3JD. I think I've lived in various parts of the world, and I've had the privilege of traveling into lots of different parts of the world and meeting lots of people from around the world. And I think looking at what I've known of Dunstable for the last 18 years, I found it a fantastic town. And it just seems to be a situation where change, sometimes you're in charge of change and you can make your own decisions, and sometimes change happens to you. In both situations, you've got to look at how you manage it. And I think the thing that sort of sits in front of me, thinking of the humanity of all sides of this, is actually not letting other people become other to us, but it's actually thinking this change has not been orchestrated by the people at the frontier. It has been handled much higher up. And in some ways, that has meant that we've been left looking at something we may not have chosen as a town, but we need to look at how we go forwards. And I think that's the important thing. And the thing we mustn't lose is people's humanity and actually learn where other people come from and what their story is. I've spoken to asylum seekers locally, and I have seen the bullet holes in the vehicles, and I have seen the bulletproof glass with the massive holes in it. And I can tell you, some of these people are traumatized. Some of these people are wounded internally. And actually, some of us here might have the same kind of things, but there's a sense of humanity, and we've got to decide how we move forward and how we show ourselves to be a good town in how those things happen. And I think in terms of that, I think the change management of people in the council and people like that, we need to help them with their change management of something that's coming upon us. And I think the difficulties to do with hospital and dental and all the rest of it are difficulties across the nation. And I think we're more broken as a nation coming out of COVID than we really realise yet.
Thank you, sir. So the lady on the end.
Hi, my name's Kathy Riley. I live at LU5 4HR. I think one of the challenges is that we are unaware of what security is in place, who the people are across the road. So perhaps if you could share some of that with us, some of the concern might be eased, because ignorance isn't always bliss. And I think ignorance here is breeding all of that you hear, all the concerns, all the worries, young people, old people alike. So perhaps if you could put a little more light on not only the people, where they've come from, not necessarily abroad, but here, but also what security is in place, what peace of mind can we have? Thank you, Viv.
Thank you, Kathy. There are 90 people at the Old Palace Lodge today. They come from Syria, they come from Afghanistan, and they come from Nigeria. There is a huge amount of security actually within the hotel. You can't get in or out without people knowing who you are. They do, and they are allowed to go out. As I said before, they have been processed. They have work permits which allow them to go and work and to live a life and learn English. And as I said, some of them have actually joined quite a few charities. In terms of any more security, what I can tell you is that there are youngish people working at the Old Palace Lodge still, because there's still a need for staff there. There's a young woman in particular who is at reception, and I speak to her on a daily basis, and she has told me that they are well behaved, they are well spoken, they are grateful, they might be fearful, and I think a gentleman made that remark earlier, for their lives, but in general they are well behaved. Andrew mentioned that they have been uprooted, and sometimes it is the second or third time. And it's very hard for them because they get used to an environment and then they get moved, and they find that difficult. The police is aware. I have spoken to Chief Inspector Jim Goldsmith, who has given me his telephone number. There has been no issue. We have spoken to the police commissioner, who's actually assured us that no crime, that the crime rate has not increased in Bedfordshire since we've had asylum seekers. And I live nearer to Luton than I live Dunstable. There are a lot of hotels in Luton with asylum seekers, and there has been no issue.
Thank you, Viv. Thank you, Viv. So we have the gentleman there, and then there's a lady at the back waving her arm at the moment as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so my name's Josh Knight, LU6 1GE. It seems to me like there's a divide on the issue of immigration, just like there was with Brexit. People who are better off tend to be more in favour of it. People who are poorer in towns like ours tend to be less in favour of it. So why aren't the people being put in the nicer areas where the people vote for the types of policies like this and are accepted and all that? Why aren't they put there? Because they'd fit in better. And Andrew, you said that not only are we going to have our hotel have, because that was the one place that people who aren't very well off They'd go once a year for a birthday or a Christmas time because it would be a nice thing to do, get dressed up. They can't do that anymore. And you mentioned, Andrew, they're going to look for like holiday parks like Haven and stuff like that. Where do poor people go on holiday? Like Pontins, places like that. You said that that's a potential place for asylum seekers to go instead of hotels. So basically we're taking all the things that poorer people like, we're putting refugees there, which is pissing poor people off, and then poor people are then demonised for being annoyed. So yeah, that's my question.
Okay.
How is the government got a plan for that?
Thank you.
I mean, so I think that the Home Office is so desperate for accommodation that it is placing asylum seekers anywhere that it can find, in wealthy areas, poorer areas. It will take any accommodation that it can get at the moment, because it is subject to legal challenge if asylum seekers spend more than 96 hours in the Manston Processing Centre. Look, I love that hotel too. I want it back. I know how precious it was to the people of the town. In fact, you know, hotels across the country are, you know, important parts of their communities for social events, for families, for local businesses, for the general life of the communities which they serve. So we absolutely want to get them back. You know, that is the government's intention, and the government is trying to find more appropriate accommodation. I did actually say surplus or disused holiday camp accommodation. I certainly wouldn't want to close down, you know, sort of well-used accommodation. And actually, where accommodation is well used, it won't be available to the Home Office. So I hope your fears are misplaced.
Thank you. Okay. Lady at the back, thank you.
Sorry, I'm not very good at this.
If you keep the microphone to your mouth, please. Oh, the microphone's not working.
Is Pauline.
Okay, we have an intermittent microphone at the moment. Bear with us.
I don't know if there's a spare one.
Is there a spare microphone anywhere, Rachel?
Good evening. My name is Pauline, and I live a few doors away from the Old Palace Lodge. What I would like to know is if these illegal immigrants, because as far as I'm concerned, that's what they are, do they have tags on? Have the police tagged them so we know where they are in the town and the country? Somebody please tell me that for security reasons. Hello?
No, they are not tagged because they've not committed a criminal offence other than coming to the UK through a route of which the government would prefer that they did not do. But as Viv said earlier, there is considerable amount of security in the hotel, and the Home Office has run checks against criminal databases, and it has full fingerprint and facial recognition biometrics. So the Home Office does as much as it possibly can to identify them, to check criminal databases. If they come to the attention of Bedfordshire Police, just like any other Dunstable resident who may have been here many generations or arrived recently, they will feel the full force of the law, because our law is completely blind to who you are. If you do wrong, you will be punished and the police will take action, and that's how it should be.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the man sitting down there, please. Thank you.
That's the far right. That's the far right corner.
I'd like to ask one question. And this
I could ask you to say your name and your postcode,
my name is
please.
Stuart Granger, and I live at the back of the Old Palace Lodge.
Thank you.
My concern is, you said to us that these illegal immigrants that have arrived at the Palace Lodge can work. Now, what I'm concerned with is, I know people that have been in this country for 20 odd years and still cannot work. So I'd like to know how it is fair for the process of these illegal immigrants to be given work permits when friends of mine cannot get work permits and have been here 20 years. So I would like...
I was going to say, I don't think Viv can answer that because that's not something that's in our gift to answer.
I'll have a stab if you
Andrew,
like.
do you want to respond?
So the position with asylum seekers is that if they've been here for 12 months waiting for their decision, they are allowed to apply for jobs on what is called the shortage occupation list. So those are occupations in the UK such as HGV drivers or social care, where we are desperately short of people. And I can tell you that there is one asylum seeker I learned recently from the Holiday Inn Express, who is a qualified social care worker. She's used up her 12-month period and is now working in Caddington Grove in the care home opposite, who are very short of staff. So the immigration law is quite complicated. I'm sorry about the friends you have that have been here a long time and are not able to work. Personally, I would like to see us making more use of the skills of people who are here. I think they should be contributing and paying taxes and, you know, filling the jobs that need to be done. But I don't think we will get to that position probably until we've sorted out the Channel Tunnel issue, because I think the government is worried about the pull factor, as it were, of people being able to work as soon as they get here. But I think once we can deal with the Channel boats issue, I personally hope that the government will make more use of people that come here for jobs that need to be doing, so they can pay tax and contribute.
Thank you. So we'll go to the lady with the microphone there, and then there's a lady behind with her hand up at the moment.
Valerie Cox, LU6 2PU. Am I right in saying that you just said there were 30 people in the hotel?
No, I said
No, there's 90 people currently, 90.
90, yes, 90. It's just that, you know, it's such a lovely hotel that we've lost. I thought you said 30 people, but if it's 90. And another thing is, they go on courses. Do they have to pay for those courses? Because my granddaughter would like to go on a course, but she would have to pay for that.
Sorry, Andrew, I don't know that one.
Yeah. So it is a very lovely hotel, which is the reason so many people are here tonight, and there is so much upset about it. And that's why we all want to get it back as a hotel as quickly as possible. So they're not funded, asylum seekers are not able to access AEB-funded English language courses until they've been in the UK for at least 6 months, I am told, is the information there. But some of them have work permits.
We've got a lady over there with her hand up.
Sorry, she just asked whether they have to pay for it. I don't know, but if you would email me, I will find out and I will write to you. I don't want to give you an inaccurate answer. I don't know that, but yes, they get given £9.10 a week, so they do have a little bit of money.
Okay, we're going to go to the lady there. Then there's a gentleman to your left, your right, Christina, second row, I believe. And then there's a gentleman with his hand up as well, just in front of you.
Ready? My name is Christine Reynolds, LU54AB. Can I just first of all say, I might be the only one in the room, I don't care whether the Old Palace Lodge ever opens. Never used it. But we have, so we go on about the asylum seekers in the Old Palace Lodge, but obviously there's the 2 holiday inns as well. Now, what I am concerned about is, you know, they're not going to have eternal health, so they are going to need hospitals, they are going to need doctors, they are going to need dentists, and, you know, how many people in this room at the present can say, I can ring up my doctor and I can get an appointment next week? You can't. It's a month. Oh, there's one. It's a month. My husband needed a hospital appointment. That took nearly 18 months to get a hospital appointment. You say that the doctors are being given extra money, well, that's fine. But if there's 5 doctors with 100 appointments a day, there's still only 500 appointments, but they've got more people to see. So the people that they've already got on their books are going to be bumped, and you're going to have to wait even longer. Also, I would like to say about an experience that my husband and I had. Every year we used to go to Spalding Flower Festival. Great time. But it was when the East Europeans were coming over through Brexit, and hell of a lot of them were put at Spalding. We gave up. We stopped going because the town had a rotten feel about it, where you had to step off the pavements because, as you say, these illegal immigrants will gang together. It's human nature for protection. So in Spalding, they started to walk around, they took over the whole of the pavement, and you had to step in and walk in the road to get round them. We stopped going because it was just awful. And so, you know, your extra money for the GPs actually counts for nothing because it's not extra GPs.
Yeah. I just did it, yeah. So, Madam, I completely recognise what you say about trying to get into a doctor. As I said earlier, I'm spending more of my time than on any other issue trying to sort that out. I mean, I think just on the numbers, it's important we keep a little bit of proportion. If it's 90 in the Old Palace Lodge, I think 260 in the Holiday Inn Express. So the Hertfordshire Moat House asylum seekers, I don't think they'll be coming to Dunstable, they'll be going to Flamstead for GP services. So that is quite small numbers in terms of the town as a whole. Now I get that any extra numbers adds to the pressure, but you know, we have new housing development in Dunstable, we have 8,000 houses north of Houghton Regis, 6,000 to the east of Leighton Buzzard. Those are really big numbers, and we don't actually have a proper planning process from the Health Authority, which is what I've been pretty vocal on for weeks, and we'll carry on being vocal on until we get that sorted. But just, I think it's important to go on the actual numbers themselves.
Thanks, Andrew. So we've got the gentleman standing there. We've then got the gentleman here with his hand up, and there's a lady literally behind you. Now the next 3, okay?
Yeah, Andrew, just a simple question. If a person asks a question, it means they don't know the answer. Most of us don't know the answer here. So I'm asking you a question.
Yeah.
People that come here that they're legal immigrants, they're running away from persecution, they get processed, that's fair enough. Nobody minds that. These people that are coming across the channel in these little boats and everything are illegal. They've no documentation on them, they've no identification on them. Therefore, you don't know who they are, where they come from or anything. There's no place where you can send them back to. You don't know where they come from. They just come here like that. They're not running away from persecution or anything. You know, they're just, all right, they're trying to make their lives better, that's fair enough. But they're coming here. My question is, and I don't know the answer, and I don't think you do either, or your government do, you process them. The ones that are legal, fair enough, you give them documentation they can send you. All the ones that are coming here illegally, you're putting them into hotels, which somebody else is earning money out of. You're putting them into hotels, posh hotels too, like the one down the road here, posh hotels. You're putting them in them hotels, you're giving them food and drink and all the rest of it, that's fair enough. But they're illegal immigrants. What happens when you put all these people in all these hotels around the country? At the end of the day, what happens at the end of the day to them people? Where do they go to? What do you do with them? At the end of the day, what do you do with them? There's hundreds of them. So, you know, you can't send them back to anywhere. You don't know where they come from. So you know, just what do you do? Yeah. That's the question. I don't know the question. I'm asking you a question, and I don't think you know
it's a good question.
Either.
It's a good question. So, I have a partial answer, not a full answer for you, and I'm sorry about that. So the government agrees with you that it wants people to apply for asylum through what the government calls safe and legal routes. And in the main, that will be applying from within the countries, which I listened to a question carefully, so let me try and respond. So the government wants asylum to happen through safe and legal routes, and it does not count what is happening across the channel, the small boats, as a safe and legal route. So the government agrees with you. Now, the sending back issue, as I said in my opening remarks, is a difficult one. We have made progress because we've got a negotiation with Albania. So 1/3 of all the people crossing the channel in small boats were from Albania. Now that is reduced pretty much to 0 because Albania is actually a safe country and we have an agreement with Albania to take people back. So just very briefly, permit me a very small story. When I was prisons minister, we were trying to return Nigerian ex-offenders to Nigeria, and I went to see the Nigerian High Commissioner with a list of 50 Nigerians that were past their visa expiry date, who had been in UK prisons, and we wanted to send them back, and the Nigerians objected. And you know, you cannot put people onto an aeroplane if the receiving country will not let them get onto the tarmac. You know, so it is challenging. So the government tries wherever it can to get returns agreements. We succeeded with Albania, but it's a good challenge, sir. We need to do better with other countries around the world, and I accept the challenge.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening. My name is Ian Coulter, LU6 3TU. I'd like to just say a couple of things. One is, I've listened to all the arguments quite carefully this evening. But one thing I'm struggling with is that we've known that there were immigrants at Markyate. We've known that there were immigrants at the Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah.
And suddenly we have the Old Palace Lodge, for whatever reason, taking immigrants. You knew about this earlier on, a good deal earlier on. What I'd like to know is, why are you calling a meeting now after the horse is bolted and the gate is shut?
Yeah, your question.
Secondly, I'd like to ask a question of the majority of people here, is that when the Old Palace Lodge goes back to normal, shall I say, and when all the reparations are carried out, how many of us will actually go there and support them?
Well, I'll have a go on that. So, unfortunately, members of Parliament, other than very, very rare exceptions, are not able to block the Home Office picking a hotel in their area. So I was first notified that the Home Office were looking at the Old Palace Lodge on the 15th of December. I immediately said, please don't use this hotel. It's not the right one for 101 reasons. I suggested another hotel which I thought was more appropriate in order to try not to be a NIMBY, as it were, but I was overruled. I spoke to the owners. I asked them if there was anything that could be done to try and prevent it. The owners agonized about the decision. They didn't finally take a decision till after Christmas. So as soon as the decision was taken, I was very happy to organise this public meeting, which is why I'm here tonight. But before Christmas, there was no decision taken, is really the answer to your question. So there was nothing to have a meeting about before Christmas. It was being looked at, and the owners had not taken a decision themselves at that point.
Thank you, Andrew. Just the lady there, or the gentleman there.
Neil Reynolds, LU5 4AB. In the name of austerity, the Conservative government
withdrew the free TV licence for people of 75 and over to save £750 million. They're now giving £2 billion a year to put people up who are not even from this country, not even worked in this country, into nice hotels. Now forget the nonsense about certain people under 75 and certain benefits can get it free. This was given to us and it's being taken away from people who've worked, in my case, for 55 years of their lives, paid taxes in all their time, and this is being taken from us and given to people who are not even from this country, got no allegiance to this country. You cannot justify that.
Thank you.
Neil, we're in complete agreement. No one, I don't think anyone here tonight is happy about what has happened to the Old Palace Lodge because it is such a special and important part of this town. And I'm really sorry about the person who said that, you know, I mean, if people don't use it when it reopens, well then it will close or it will, you know, be turned into a block of flats. And that would be desperately sad. And I hope that most people here will perhaps, you know, take a different view and do that. So the hotel is being paid for out of an existing budget, money that the government had intended to spend in other countries around the world relieving poverty. That aid budget is the budget that is being used. So the money that the government is using is not coming out of any budget heading that should have been spent for the people of this country here in the UK.
Thank you. The gentleman there, third in. Thank you.
Hello, Alan Daniels, LU5 4PL. What I've got to say here tonight, we're all here tonight simply because our government failed to secure a post-Brexit return agreement. I remember that beautiful, lovely Boris telling us about the oven-ready deal, which you voted for, Andrew. And it wasn't so ready, was it, really? Because what it's done, it means we have no return agreement for France, which is a big problem. And that's why you're trying to get out of it by going to other countries. We had a perfect system, and you broke it. And you know you did. And that's very sad. I've watched the Conservatives over the last 6 years just fail the people miserably. You've divided us as a country. I stand here watching this lot. It's shocking. We should be together. And I just think, my question to you is, are you going to fix the returns agreement? What's your plan? So we can actually get back to where we were 6 years ago with 300 asylum seekers. It's as simple as that.
Well, just to go back to Brexit, that was a decision taken by the people to your left and right and in front and behind you. It was a democratic decision for the whole of the British people, wasn't it? And however we voted, I think we're all committed to the democratic outcome. I agree with you about the need for returns agreements. I've told you of the one we have just secured with Albania. I very much hope we can secure returns agreements with other countries. I do just observe, though, I was thinking about this earlier today, it is rather a one-way traffic, isn't it, between France and the UK, so you do have to slightly wonder how much it would be in the interest of France to, to take non-French nationals back again, because they're not sort of many coming the other way, as it were. But to your point about the importance of returns agreements, I couldn't agree with you more. They are very valid. Brexit was a decision taken by everyone in this room. I think it was a fair thing to ask the people of this country to decide who governs them. I don't think we want to revisit that because it was divisive. And yes, I also completely agree with you about the need for us to come back together. We know we won't all share the same views, but we do need to be able to rub along with each other, don't we, and hear each other. And actually, as the Archbishop of Canterbury says, and I think he says in the church, to learn to disagree well and to disagree slightly better than we do with each other sometimes. So I think you make good points there.
Okay, thank you. Got a gentleman here who hasn't yet asked a question.
Bill McCarthy, LU54QB. You mentioned a prepared and planned system. When are we going to see it?
That's a very good question. It should have been a couple of years ago, as far as I'm concerned. I think it has been too slow. I know that the Home Office and the lawyers are looking at this in terms of how it all relates with our international agreements, but hands up, as your MP, I wish that we had found a solution a lot more quickly. I know the government is currently preparing legislation. I've been expecting every week for it to be announced for the past couple of weeks. I don't quite know why it is taking so long, but it will have to be legally watertight and it will have to work. You know, I don't, at the risk of repeating myself again, you know, I think the government agrees that what is happening in the Channel is not satisfactory. It's not something that the United Kingdom wants. It's something the United Kingdom is having to deal with, something that's sort of happening to us, as the gentleman in the front row said earlier, and we are working to try and regularise the situation and to make sure that asylum happens through safe and legal routes, which I think is where we all want to get to.
Thank you, Andrew. I know there's a couple of hands that keep going up, but you've already asked a question, so let me just check there's nobody else in the audience that wants to, which there is. So we've got one here and there's another hand at the back there as well. So we'll go those two first.
Yeah, Councillor Sid Abbott, LU6 3FQ. I believe this is a commercial decision on behalf of the Old Palace Lodge, and I think they've done a disservice to Dunstable, a real bad disservice. And what I'd like to say, and I think you did say it in your speech, that our National Health Service at the moment is on its knees. 2 out of 5 patients in hospital are bed blocking. It costs £400 a night to keep them there. When you were doing your consultation, surely you said you took in hospital convalescents. Why couldn't this be done as part of the consultation? Thank you.
For the hotel,
the consultation.
Well, were you able to take patients in hospital?
I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean about consultation. Oh, that's what we... No, of course not, but that doesn't exist anymore. That was at the onset of COVID, when the L&D was worried that if they were overwrought with the number of people they needed to take in who had COVID, they needed to get the people who were convalescing, so they did not need to stay in a hospital, into accommodation where they could be saved and looked after, but not automatically go home. So that was what we were trying to do with Central Bed. As it happened, the L&D never needed that service, but we worked to offer it. And as I said to you during COVID, we also hosted doctors and nurses from the L&D hospital at no cost.
Okay, thank you, Viv. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Jeff Rawson, LU54SY. You say these people that are down at the Old Palace Lodge have got work permits. If they get a job, do they contribute? Do they pay tax and insurance? And do they pay anything towards their keep? Thank you.
Well, if they were, they've got the national health number.
If they're not paying tax and national insurance, then they'd be working illegally. So, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Gentleman against the pillar.
We can't erase
Vincent Charles, LU13UP. There seems to be a lot of talk here tonight about poverty and austerity and the impact of austerity on people's lives. But let's be clear about it. The people who are living in the Palace Lodge and who are trying to escape poverty and persecution, they are not responsible for the poverty and the austerity in this country. And there's been many people here have made huge references to the National Health Service and the pressure on the National Health Service and the potential pressure that on the National Health Service that the people who are living in the Palace Lodge and the people who have come here for a place of safety will put on the National Health Service. I work in the National Health Service. I'm a mental health nurse. The National Health Service would grind to a halt would it not be for migrant workers. Andrew made references earlier on to people from Nigeria. I work in mental health services in Luton. If we did not have people from Nigeria living in Luton and living in Bedfordshire, working in mental health services, we would have no mental health services in Luton. And I think people need to take that into account.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions from... Yep. I am aware you want to ask another question, sir, but you have already asked one and there's still people that haven't yet asked.
So I'm going to introduce myself, as the councillors know, as the lady in blue, and I'm not going to give my postcode for YouTube. So in your opening statement, you mentioned mismanagement of the government. Isn't that very telling that you start off with a critique of your own government, and let alone the fact that the local council are not here, South Beds, Central Beds, whatever we call them these days. And we're in the country that is the worst performing G7 country. Let alone the strikes that are affecting most of us, whether it's daily or we're the people that are going on strike. And like the gentleman in front of me said, the lack of public information, especially when there's change going on, communication is key, and this is all coming far too late. The local council's not here, they can't actually say anything, it's not been coordinated with them, it sounds like you don't know what's going on. So actually I'd like to ask, what support, yet again, is there for the NHS, doctors, schools, police? I've never seen so many police in all my life. I mean, normally there's 8 of them rushing to one job, but it's nice to see them today. Thanks for getting the overtime in, boys, because I don't get paid any, so that's great. But most importantly, I work in education, by the way. We don't get overtime. But most importantly, I would like to challenge you, as our MP, to table a question at Prime Minister's questions about all of this today, because we're all here to hold you to account, as you say, as the people that employ you. And people have mentioned about the short-term planning and the long-term planning that we seem to have no idea about, and yet again this comes down to the mismanagement of government, local councils that we all pay with our 5% increase in council tax, and yet again we are the people paying. My parents can't book into a 4-star hotel, they turn the heating off in the day because they've got fuel poverty. And I don't disagree that these people are in need, but yet again, what are you going to do to hold your government to account to represent the people that employ you?
Thank you.
Well, I think it's reasonable that if I think the Home Office could do this in a better way, that I suggest that. I think you'd want me to be independent-minded and making suggestions to the government to do things better than it should be. And as I said several times, I think they should ask local authorities to make these choices themselves in the first instance. And as it happens, I do have a question on the order paper for next Wednesday at Prime Minister's Questions. So watch this space about my accountability of the government on this issue.
Thank you, Andrew. So we've got a lady 2 rows up. We're going to have a couple more questions and then we're going to round up. So we've got the lady here on the end. And then there's a gentleman at the back with a baseball cap on.
It's on a lighter note, and it's a question, it's a suggestion for Andrew. Viv mentioned in her introduction that there was 2 vacant hotels in Harpenden now that's just closed down. So maybe to keep the people of Dunstable a bit happier, maybe take it back to the Home Office that there is 2 hotels and puts them in Harpenden.
Yes.
Because we've had this.
Thank you.
It's a very sharp observation, madam, and if they're empty, I'd be very surprised if the Home Office hadn't already got onto them. But I will put that suggestion to the Home Office. I shall make a note, so thank you for making it.
Okay, so the gentleman at the back, and then we've got one other new face that wants to ask a question, and then that will be the end of the questions. Microphone technicals again.
Julian Richards, LU6. Thank you, Liz, for doing a great job of hosting this tonight. We appreciate that. I'm a pastor of a church in Dunstable, and we also have the cinema on the High Street, which we've been able to accommodate a lot of the weddings that weren't able to happen at the Old Palace Lodge. We also have Dunstable Conference Centre, and I just wanted to assure you, Andrew, and possibly ask for your help, that even though central beds aren't here tonight, which I find a little bit surprising, there are a lot of stakeholders in the town, significant stakeholders, that would be a part of helping solve this problem. We've heard a lot of both sides of the argument tonight, but we'd like to see solutions from tonight's meeting, and I'd like to make that offer to you. Perhaps you could facilitate the head of Central Beds meeting with some of the stakeholders in the town. There are some significant businesses around that I know would like to be a part of trying to solve some of these issues, and we pull together as a community.
Thank you, Julian.
Julian, thank you very much. I will put that offer through to Central Bedfordshire Council. It's a typically helpful one from you. Thank you very much. And I just come back actually to what Nigel said earlier. I think there is a sense, a very strong sense actually, that this is something that has been done to the town. I think what will define the town is how we'll react and how we go forward. And I like the spirit of your question, and there are lots of organisations looking to help and find a way through this. So let's do it well, and let's look to the future and a brighter future, and that involves the Old Palace Lodge reopening as soon as possible, as far as I'm concerned.
Gentlemen, last question.
Is it working? I'm from Dunstable. I prefer not to give my name. I would just ask one question to Mr. Selous. This whole issue is clearly very toxic. It gets a lot of people very angry. I actually don't blame the Old Palace Lodge Hotel. I don't think that this is really the issue at all. The issue we're dealing with is that Britain is changing radically. We can all see it. London is now only 37% British. Now, we all know what that means. And I would ask Andrew Selous, how far, both legal and illegal migration, how far are we going to let this go? That's all I can ask. At what point do we say, gosh, you know, it's not really us anymore? And I think that's really what the issue is actually about at heart. We're all kind of skirting around the issue, oh, the hotel. Yes, it's sad, but that's not actually what's really worrying and frightening people. That's just my thought. I'd ask Andrew, how far do you think it should be allowed to progress? And I know how this will be framed, racism, but actually it's not really. It's just a serious question. All countries have to ask this of themselves, how far do we allow this to go?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. It's a fair question. I don't think it's a racist question either. So for many years, immigration and emigration were roughly in balance, if you look at the figures, and I've looked at them carefully in the House of Commons library. And then that changed quite substantially, and I think that was part of what the Brexit vote was about, wasn't it? It was about being, sort of, particularly in relation to free movement. So I want us to control immigration. I want us to allow in the people that we want to allow in for the skills that we need. I do think we have a proud tradition of offering refugee status from the Jews from Nazi Germany and so on. But again, I think we actually need to do that in a controlled manner, not least so we can do it well. But these should be decisions that we are able to make, and that is why I think there is a genuine sense of upset at the feeling that we have lost control because of what is happening in the Channel. So the government is aware of that. We do need to fix it. I've always thought we should control immigration properly. We're a rich, diverse economy. We're greatly blessed, as the gentleman said over there, by the people from overseas who work in the NHS, and many people who come to this country start businesses and employ lots of people. So we're always going to have people coming and going. But roughly to get back to a sense of balance, I think would be good, and that's something I would like to get to in time.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. So I'm going to draw this evening's proceedings to a close, but before I do, I just want to read a statement that was agreed at Dunstable Town Council, because I think it's quite pertinent that you hear what we as a town council are going to be doing. So, being located on the crossing of two main historic routes, Dunstable does have a proud history of welcoming people from far and wide. And this council values all of its residents. We welcome all new residents and will encourage and support them to become active members of the community wherever possible. And the council is committed to supporting local businesses and developing a thriving high street. The council hopes that the Old Palace Lodge will return to its normal use once it's economically viable to do so. And that is something that I truly believe in. We have to do what's right for Dunstable and support our people of all backgrounds. Okay, so that tonight is the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Really appreciate it. I haven't ignored you all night, sir. You have asked a question.
Are you a council? I am. So why don't you talk to the people of Dunstable? When I phoned up, I was told